Welcome to the Switchblade Sisters Social Club, a true crime podcast where two sisters exploit their worst fears for your entertainment. You're welcome. I'm Dee.
And I'm Rhonda, and together we are the Sake Sisters. For more information, check out our website at www.switchbladesistersocialclub.com or find us on Instagram and Facebook at Switchblade Sisters Social Club.
Thanks for listening. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our new podcast, Switchblade Sisters Social Club, a true crime podcast where two sisters exploit their worst fears for your entertainment.
So sorry. I had to cough.
So my name's Dee, and this is my sister Rhonda, and we are the Safia sisters. Hi.
Hi.
So that's about as perky as we get. And on to the murder. We have a website, switchbladesistersocialclub.com. And there's also links to work with us if you want to discuss podcasts, management, podcast editing, writing, website needs, etc.
Social media for podcasts?
Social media and so forth. We have a set of
packages
skills
for everything.
Yeah. We also have an email, switchbladesistersocialclub@gmail.com. We are running a giveaway at the moment for some of our awesome merch, some of it which arrived in the post in between recording two different episodes, but
yeah.
our stickers,
I love them.
Look,
Also sign up to our newsletter for podcast freebie. We made a podcast downloadable ebook for you guys, anyone who's interested in starting a podcast, basically a how-to guide with a checklist.
Yeah. So it's not as complicated as, I won't say it's not as difficult. It is hard work, but it's not as complicated as you might think if you haven't got started. So do sign up for that if you want some tips and tricks. If you're already making your podcast, maybe we've got some stuff in there that you haven't thought about or you're trying to figure out. But yeah, the giveaway, please do email us with a screenshot of you signing up, of your confirmation screen for signing up to our mailing list, and a review on Apple Podcasts or following on Spotify or whatever you listen to, and we will enter you in to a prize draw to get a bunch of our merch, both not just our Switchblade Sister Social Club merch, like this t-shirt behind me and our stickers, but also some of our merch from our own line. So I've got a lunar planner for 2023 that we're including, and my sister's going to be sending you a Shio notebook and all sorts of goodies, right?
Yep, loads.
So do enter that prize draw. We're going to be running it for the first couple of weeks, so enter soon as, and yeah, maybe win some freebies. Who doesn't love a freebie? So I mentioned at the end of the last episode that the first 4 episodes of this podcast, we know what we're covering.
Yeah.
After that, we will be surprising each other with the topics. But we already know that this episode will be on Levi Bellfield. This one was close to home because it was literally close to our home. It was local and was happening at a time when we were a similar age to the victims. I was working at Hounslow Council when Millie Dowler went missing, and I'll go into her case in a moment. And there were posters all over the council building. It was like when Madeleine McCann went missing, and you would travel through airports and see her posters everywhere. The former DCI, Colin Sutton, he was the chief detective inspector on this case. And many of the notes, we always quote our sources, come from The Real Manhunter. Which is not the Martin Clunes dramatization, The Manhunter, which is actually based on Colin Sutton and Levi Bellfield. Many of my sources are also from a talk given by a Scotland Yard Murder Squad detective, Steve Gaskin, who I'm trying to convince to come on the podcast.
Oh, he would be great.
Oh, he was so fascinating, and he's also worked on a couple of cases that we want to cover. So hopefully, watch his space. He already agreed in Prison Ball, but let's hope we can nail him down.
Let's get it in writing.
Yeah, but do check out the amazing his organization that he set up, the Crime Lab, which gives events and talks. Like, I'm gutted because I'm missing one where you can actually go and learn how to fingerprint and stuff like that. Yeah. The Levi Bellfield documentary with former DCI Colin. Also a talk held by Colin and Steve. Lads. They did a talk recently together. I also am obsessed with this lady in a healthy way, in a non-stalkery serial killer way, with a lady called Jennifer Reese, who has been doing a tour of her talk, Psychology of a Serial Killer. I've been to see it twice now, and I might go again in March.
Was that the one at the Richmond Theatre?
Yeah, so good. I saw it at Richmond Theatre. I saw it at the Beck Theatre in Hayes. I had separate friends who wanted to go, and, you know, I'm always up for going again. So, but she's so interesting. And then I also read Colin's book. I call him Colin like he's a mate of mine because I really feel like I got really close to him in this time. But so former DCI Colin Sutton, he wrote a book as well on this case. So I've also got a couple of articles from The Guardian, one called Millie Dowler, Voicemail Hacking, News of the World, and one called The Sun Faces Fresh Claims of Phone Hacking During Rebecca Brooks' Era. So yeah, more to that. I mean, it's so many things about this case are disgusting, and not even just Levi Bellfield, but so many people associated with it that you just think, oh. All right, well, I'm going to start with some trivia for you.
Okay, hold on. I've had my caffeine. I've had my codeine, and I'm ready.
Did you have your caffeine out of our mug?
I did.
Yes. Which will also be included in our giveaway. Yeah, so the trivia. What % of murders do you think are committed by serial killers?
Oh, I'm going to say like the majority are not. That the majority of murders are unplanned, right?
Yeah, so it's only 1%.
Oh, okay. I don't know if I feel better about that or worse. I don't know. I don't know how the risk factor affects me.
I know. Personally, I think it's highly likely to be killed by someone I know.
Yeah. Well, so that's the frightening thing, isn't it?
That is the frightening thing. Obviously, a lot of murders. Well, let me carry on. What percentage of unsolved murders do we think are committed by serial killers?
Sorry, what percentage by serial killers?
Of unsolved.
Oh. Is it really low? It's going to be really low.
Well, it's 2%.
I was going to say 2! I wish I did. Okay.
We'll take your word for it. But yeah, so 1% of all murders are committed by serial killers, and 2% of unsolved crimes are committed by serial killers, or I should say suspected anyways, because sometimes they know it's a serial killer because of DNA evidence. They just don't know who that person is. But sadly, you're much more likely to be killed by someone you know, family, relationship, that sort of thing. Yeah. So that means each person's
it's always the fucking husband.
Is relative. Yeah.
Oh God, it's fucking frightening. Okay, that's frightening. Also, on a tangent. Oh God, no, I don't even want to go there. It's always somebody in the family. Anyway, okay, wait, cut that bit out.
Another fun fact in quotation marks: male serial killers operate for about 2 years before getting caught.
Do you know how the fuck it's still in this day and age?
Yeah,
with CCTV, like all the tracking shit that we have everywhere. I don't know how anyone gets away with anything.
Well, we can discuss that further at the end of this when I finish telling you about this case.
Okay, well, I don't need to walk around fucking afraid I'm going to be caught out for something anymore if people are getting away with murders all the time and not being caught. I thought in this day and age it was like impossible to get away with anything. Wait.
How long do you think it takes on average to catch a female serial killer? We know that they're much less, smaller percent, but how long do you think it takes on average to catch a female serial killer?
I'm going to say longer because they're smarter.
9.5 years.
Yeah.
That's partly because of the
because they always suspect it's a man, huh? So they're not looking for women.
Probably, but also the methods that women are more commonly using as serial killers.
Oh, it's normally the slow way.
Well, it's normally like poisoning and gunshots, which leave less DNA than things like strangling and rape and so forth. So,
mm-hmm.
yeah, sorry. Trigger warnings. I think you can assume that every episode is just a bunch of trigger warnings.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
this
if
one,
you,
especially because we're going to include obviously murder.
yeah.
Obviously, there's going to be rape, abduction, rape of children. So, yeah, just trigger warning the hell out of this episode.
Yeah.
But you say you can just walk around and no one's catching murderers. What do you think the detection rate is for murder?
What does that mean?
Like how many murders, what do you think are caught?
Okay. It's going to be another frightening fucking statistic. Less than 50.
Actually, it's 90%.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if that's worldwide or just the UK, I have to
Okay.
say.
Okay.
I mean, to be honest, anything less than 100% is scary,
Yeah.
but it's much higher than I thought.
Okay, it is, yeah. Okay.
So,
it started bleak. It's looking a bit better.
yeah. And I think partly because it is mainly murders are mainly committed by people you know. And so it's a good starting point in terms of investigations. With a serial killer, it's more scary because its victims are often more random. Someone you have never met or you don't know. And so where do you even start investigating that person or the link to the possible killer? Okay, so I'm going to get straight into it because this one is a long and windy road.
Okay, let's go.
We're going to start with Marshall McDonnell.
Mm-hmm.
She was 19. On the 4th of February, 2003, she was murdered in Hampton on Percy Road.
I remember it so well, you know, because I remember that was like not long after I met Jim. For those who don't know, that's my husband, who's from that area. And I remember being like, oh, fuck, spending a lot of time in that area now.
Yeah. And basically, the area that Levi operated was very much between where we used to live in Chiswick and where Jim used to live. That area between was a 15-minute drive. That was his stomping ground, for want of a better word. Marcia had been to the cinema in Kingston to see Catch Me If You Can with friends. She got the 111 bus home. I've included bus routes because they're all buses that I take regularly.
Yeah, I used to take that bus.
Like, honestly, freaked myself the fuck out reading all this because it just something about walking the same streets as the people that were his victims and taking the same buses and having done so loads at night on my own and stuff. It just made me realize
don't fucking go out on your own.
Fucking vulnerable. But I know, but
why are you? Don't do that. I've never done that.
Not gonna. Well, it's just difficult in the winter when it's dark at like 3.
Where are you going?
You know? Well, yeah, not many places, but you know what I mean.
We got Amazon. Don't go out at night.
So she got the 111 bus at 20 past midnight. She got off the bus really close to her house. And then soon after, neighbor David Fuller heard a thump and a car door slam. But he couldn't see anything, so he just went to bed, which, fair enough, I would do the same. But then he heard a long moan, so he left his house and he found Marcia. The suspect was in a car, had followed the bus, followed her to her road, propositioned her, then got out of the car, hit her on the head, and she died a few days later in hospital from her injuries. This all happened 100 yards from her home. It's a running theme of people getting off their bus really close to home and being hit, like, and being attacked. So even if you think, oh, the bus stop is like on my street, you're proved you're never safe.
No.
This was investigated initially by Hendon Police instead of Twickenham Police, which resulted in a lack of communication and coordination later on with the cases that were being covered by Twickenham Police. Hendon Police had a 16-year-old suspect for the Marcia case who had an alibi for the future attacks. So they weren't keen to link all the attacks that are coming up. Because the suspect, codenamed Sharp in Colin Sutton's book, so we'll call him Sharp, the 16-year-old boy, he was the suspect for Marcia's case. He couldn't be tried because of his mental health issues, but he was in a mental health facility after the Marcia McDonnell attack, and he was there during the time of these future attacks that I'm going to go through. So because it wasn't possible for him to physically do these other attacks, Hendon Police wanted to see the Marcia McDonnell case as a separate case done by a separate perpetrator, and they, in their eyes, they had the guilty party They couldn't try him because of his mental health issues, but he was locked away and therefore people were safe.
Mm-hmm.
So the night before Marsha's murder, there was another girl called Sharon who reported being followed. She called her dad to pick her up. Great, smart girl. On her way home, so their dad picked her up, they're driving home. They pass a guy who she says was following her, and it was Sharp.
Mm-hmm.
And that's who Hendon then arrested, because, you know, it's not a good look following a girl, and then later on this girl is attacked. Even though there's no connection, though, to Marsha. So really the only reason they suspected him is because he'd been following this girl previously. And that's not to say he's not a danger. I don't know.
And why was it Hendon police? Hendon is far from Twickenham.
I don't know. Sometimes it's based on who's got the availability, who's got the resources.
Okay.
If it's a more serious crime, it gets put up to a bigger police department. So maybe it's something to do with that. Sharon Sharp, the 16-year-old suspect, claims he was at home watching the Martin Bashir Michael Jackson interview, which I was like, that's very specific. But I Googled, and it was that night that it was released. And if you remember at the time, we were all super hyped up to watch this documentary. The lead up, the run up to it.
Yeah.
God,
Martin Bashir. Yeah. I mean, he did the Princess Diana interview.
Exactly. And, you know, it was at the time where there was all these rumors going around about Michael Jackson. And I think some allegations had already been made. So it's not that weird that someone would be at home watching it, basically, because I think a lot of people in the nation were doing that. And also just a little reminder of what it was like, TV was like at the time. There were very many less options for watching repeats and recordings.
Oh God, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
it was real time or nothing.
Recording things were a mish. Like, trying to learn how to schedule your VCR and to record the correct channel was difficult. Yeah, so, you know, you just kind of, if you really wanted to watch something, you tried to watch it live because that was your best chance. So unfortunately, Marsha McDonald passed away. 15 months later, a girl called Kate Sheedy, who's like my new girl crush. She's absolutely fucking amazing. She was 18 years old. She was going to Gumley House School.
The one in Isleworth, yeah.
Yeah. On the 24th of May, 2004, so like I said, 15 months after Marsha McDonald's attack, she was attacked on Wharton Road in Isleworth. She'd been out in Twickenham with school friends to celebrate their last day of lessons before exams. So, you know, when you have that sort of study leave, don't you, before your exams? She got the H22 bus home. The bus stop is 200 yards from her house. So again, super close. I actually went, I'm going to just share my screen with you for a moment. Just bear with. So this is Twickenham town centre, and she would have got the H22 up here to Wharton Road. Zoom in. Short bus ride. It probably at that time of night, because it was in the evening, would have been like a 10-minute bus ride. I don't know what house number she lived at, but she possibly would have got off around this stop.
Yeah.
So the bus was followed by a people carrier. It was a white people carrier with blacked out windows. And again, what a brave, smart girl. She got off the bus and the people carrier was still there, but with the lights off and the engine running. And she got like, you know, creepy vibes from it. She got a bit wary of it. So she crossed the road. So then the car sped up and hit her. The front wheel went over her body and then reversed over it again and drove away.
Jesus.
All her ribs were broken and her liver was split in two.
Jesus Christ.
Listen to this fucking amazing woman. She remained conscious. She crawled to where her phone was because she dropped it a little bit, you know, or it flew a bit further away. She called her mum and 999.
Jesus Christ. Wow.
The 999 call was in the documentary I watched, and it was so heartbreaking because
no.
I know, don't listen to it if you don't like 999 calls, but she was so brave. but yet she sounds so young and so scared.
Oh my God, it makes me so sad because she's a kid.
She's a baby. I mean, I know 18 is legally an adult, but we think of anyone under 30 these days as like a child because they're just so young.
I just see them as kids because I used to teach that age. They are kids, you know? Sad.
I mean, she was still in school, but she survived, bless her. And it wasn't clear at first if this case was linked to other cases in the area, which I will go into, because it was a hit and run. Instead of some of the other attacks that have been going on in the area, which, like I said, I'll go over, where the attacks were an attack normally from behind with a blunt object.
So that wasn't the same guy?
It wasn't the same method.
Okay.
The police started looking at other non-fatal attacks nearby to see if there was anything that might be linked to this or that might give clues to this case. The problem is, if you are attacked and survived, you get a couple of police officers looking at your case. If you are attacked and die, it's a separate team, the homicide team. So it can take a while for, and obviously you get more police officers allocated to that case, but it can take a while for cases to be linked because they're dealt with by different teams, sometimes by different police departments, sometimes by different police stations if they happen in different areas. Here's what they found that might be linked to these two attacks. This is the genius that is Colin Sutton. My love, Colin Sutton. Colin, if you want to be my pen pal. So Anna Maria Rennie, she was 17 on the 14th of October 2001, so a few years previous to both Marcia and Kate Sheedy, on Hospital Bridge Road in Whitton.
Oh God, I know that road. Yeah,
I drive down it all the time.
Yeah,
she got off the bus and a suspect in a car pulled up, grabbed her and tried to get her in the car. Luckily, thank fuck, she managed to get away. Then there's a case of Dawn Brunton, 35. She was, this was on the 5th of November, 2003. Hatton Road in Feltham. She was attacked, but she survived. And all of these cases, they had very little, very little evidence. Obviously, it would have been taken further. Irma Dragoshi, I hope I'm saying that right. Apologies, Irma, if I'm not. She was 34. On the 16th of December 2003, on Old Bath Road in Longford Village, she was waiting for a bus and was hit over the head with a blunt instrument. Luckily, she survived. Jessie Wilson, she was 17, on the 8th of January 2003, near Strawberry Hill Station. So again, super close to... All of these
are so close.
Right. They're super close to each other. And they're super close to where I'm sitting right now. I live in Twickenham. This one wasn't even treated as a crime at first because they thought she might have fallen over in the snow. She didn't really remember what happened, which is obviously very common with a head injury. It was only when Marcia was murdered 4 weeks later, very close by, that this was looked at as a crime. The pathologist who did the autopsy on Marcia looked at pictures of Jessie's injuries and said he thought the attacks were by the same person. They couldn't prove it was an attack, though, and Jessie had no memory of the incident. So
was it ever taken further?
Well, at this point, as you know, everyone now is scared of what was starting to be known as the Hampton Hammerer.
Yeah.
So 3 months after Kate Sheedy was run over, this is kind of the case that got everything really going. Unfortunately. But fortunately, they catch the guy in the end. Spoiler alert. You know this because it's Levi. On the 19th of August in 2004, there was a murder on Twickenham Green, which, to give you an idea, is about a 15-minute drive from our house at the time in Chiswick and about a 6-minute walk from my house now. It's where I go for brunch all the time, go for nice walks.
And I mean, just to explain to people who don't know it, it's like a green surrounded by shops, restaurants.
Ah, well, you say that. Let me show you some pictures. Close your eyes, close your eyes. Okay, you can open. Twickenham Green is one of the places in Twickenham that made me fall in love with Twickenham and want to move here because imagine, because Twickenham obviously used to be a separate little village town. It's now part of Greater London. So this was like one of the main greens, and you've got churches off of it. You can see one there in the background. You know, it's got restaurants and cafes all around it. It's super cute.
Twickenham is perfect suburban London, isn't it? You're by the river, you're on the river. And
loads of parks, loads of bars, restaurants, pubs, loads of young people, loads of families. It's just got, look, I love living here. I love it so much. I always feel super grateful that I live here. But it does have this one unfortunate case. This is where we have the murder of Amélie de Lagrange. And she was actually murdered. You can see here the Twickenham, the cricket green that is covered to protect it. The cricket strip, I don't know what it's called. It was around there that she was murdered. In these pictures, you can see, so look, this is Arthur's restaurant, which used to be the public toilet. And you can see here a bus on the road. And I think you can from the other pictures as well. You'll see that there are bus routes that go on either side of this green. Loads of buses constantly going by. Almost every picture I took, see there's a bus. I think there's one here. You can see a bus there. So buses going either side. Like I said, restaurants along one side, houses all around the green, churches on either side. So it's busy. It's a busy green. So 10:15, a local man called Tristram Beasley Suffolk. I'm naming him because he's named in the book by Colin, so I presume it's okay to. I didn't want to, reveal anything that wasn't already in the public domain. I was sneaky and tried to find him on Facebook because I have this curiosity. I couldn't find him, and I suspect it's for exactly that reason. Looky-loos like me trying to find him. But he was basically, at the time, was a young guy. He was taking a break from studying for his resits, and so he's going for a walk, and he came across this body on the green. At this point, sadly, well, she was still alive. I didn't know this. He went to go get help. Again, 2004, it's totally possible, especially when you're just popping out, that you don't have a mobile and you're not glued to it in the same way as we are now.
Yeah. There weren't smartphones back then. It was just a phone that made phone calls and text.
So he might not have had a mobile phone. He might have had one and just not brought it with him on this little break from studying. So, but he ran to, I think it was the restaurants, and tried to find a phone. The ambulance arrived within minutes. She got taken to Kingston Hospital and died 15 minutes after arriving. Next to her, they found a bag with some of her stuff. And it's a till receipt with some names and numbers on it. Again, phones were not like they are now. They weren't like our mini computers that you keep in our pocket with all of our information about our whole lives on them. So she had a mobile phone, but maybe it wasn't very functional. Maybe she didn't really trust the battery or whatever. So she basically had a bunch of phone numbers on this receipt.
How old was she?
She was 19.
Jesus.
The police started calling these numbers because at this point they don't know who she is. One of the numbers was for a guy called Olivier. The police called him and he told them the name of the victim. It was Amélie de Lagrange. She lived near Twickenham Green on Gold Road, which again, one I walk by all of the time. Close your eyes for a minute. Here we have Gold Road. You can open your eyes. So it's really cute, tiny cottages and everything. And then let me just open this picture. That is the house that she lived in. 66 Gold Road. Super cute. I'm guessing she rented a room in it. Yeah. Okay. So this Gold Road, short walk, like literally 5-minute walk from the bus stop at Twickenham Green. But she was working as a waitress at Maison Blanc in Richmond, a French patisserie. She's French, so I guess it was a comparative advantage for her to work there. But now I'm going to introduce you to two other key players, Mark and David Leach. I like them because they are brothers who both work as police officers and also working on this case, just like us. siblings who love working together on the case.
Fighting crime and solving mysteries.
Yeah. It was a tough one because the entire green was a crime scene. It isn't a huge green, as you saw from the pictures. It's a triangular green with a cricket club on one end, public toilet block converted into a cute restaurant, Arthur's at the other end. Again, a restaurant I go to all the time. They have amazing sourdough pizzas and great cocktails. Really slow service, but if you're there on a nice summer's day with a seat on the green, you're okay with that. So they used CCTV to track down Amelie's final movements. After work in Richmond, she met with friends at Crystal's in Twickenham. It's not there anymore, but it looks like it was on London Road, on the road with Twickenham train station. And I think, judging from the picture of it, it's where the press room is now, for those of you who are local. She phoned her boyfriend Olivier from there. Then she went across, when she left, crossed the road to get the bus from outside Waitrose. They had only just, this is a stroke of luck, but they had only just introduced CCTV on the buses coming in and out of the local Fulwell bus garage. So now we're used to, in London, in the UK, getting on a bus and you can see the CCTV footage flipping on the cameras on the bus sometimes. So they're showing you, like, we're watching you. But this was very new at the time. And they had just introduced cameras on both the inside and the outside of buses. So there is footage of Amelie getting on the bus on the 267 towards Fulwell. Yeah. Share my screen.
Oh God, you're going to show the footage.
No, I'm just showing you. This is her getting on the bus, 9:39 p.m. Breaks my heart even looking at her.
So her parents didn't live here?
I will get to that. For some reason, she missed her stop and stayed on the bus till the last stop, which was Fulwell Garage. She asked the bus driver when the next bus going back would be, and he told her about 10 minutes. It was August, fairly nice weather. So, and the walk is really like a 10-minute walk. So she decided to walk back instead of waiting for the next bus. Again, totally relatable, right? I mean, 9:30, it doesn't even feel that late.
And it's not really dark in August at that time of night.
Exactly. So police walked up Hampton Road, which is the road that goes from Fulwell Bus Garage up to Twickenham Green, where she would have walked, to see what CCTV opportunities they were. They obviously knew that there was the footage on the buses, not just the one she was on, but the other ones going up and down that route. They saw that there was a static CCTV camera outside Loch Fyne, which is a fish restaurant that sadly closed down during the pandemic.
Shame, 'cause it was nice.
Yeah, it was really nice. I'm vegetarian and they have nice vegetarian meals. We used to go there with our parents a lot because they liked it. So very much a shame, but they had CCTV. And also there's an accountant down that street that also had CCTV. So they used CCTV to track her journey. They even saw that there was a police car that drove past and managed to get camera footage from that police car, as well as other buses in the area. So this is what they found. She gets off here at, so she got on the bus up here in the northwest of the picture, top right. Took the bus all the way down the Green and Hampton Road to this stop and got off at 21:45 or was seen walking back at this time. And then these are the times she's caught on CCTV walking back to the Green. So you can see she gets to the Green at 10:01, right? Sorry, it's just a tough one. They managed to get about a dozen captures of her between the bus garage and the Green. The Green itself is a black spot. Unfortunately, there's no cameras and it was pitch black. So at around 10:05 is when she entered the Green. And remember, her dying body was found at 10 minutes later at 10:15. So this happens very quick. And I think about this girl every time I walk across the Green. There's a bench tribute to her, a bench with her name on it, and we have vigils that are held here occasionally, like for example when Sarah Everard was murdered, we had a vigil on the Green for women's safety and so forth. So at some point between 10:05 and 10:15 when she's found, the attacker hit her on the head with a heavy object. French-speaking officers told French police about this case because they wanted to find out more about her, where her parents were, etc. The French police wanted to just call the parents who lived in France to tell them what happened to their daughter. Her dad is an architect and her mom was a PA. And apparently that's French police procedure. They just make a phone call to tell someone that their family member's been murdered. Where English police policy apparently is to go round, to send a police officer around to tell them in person. I mean, either way, it's shit news, but one just feels a lot more sensitive.
Yeah.
The legend that is Colin insisted that they send someone around in person to tell the parents that their daughter had been murdered. He even threatened to call the British embassy to get someone from the British embassy to go and tell the parents. Apparently that scared the police and they agreed to go and drive to the parents' house and tell them in person. But they literally waited on the drive for the parents to come home because they were away from their house at the time, and told the parents that their daughter had been murdered on the driveway, and then just drove off.
Jesus Christ. I mean, how does anyone be so cold?
I don't know. But they gave the family, the parents, Colin's phone number, and Colin remained regularly in touch with them and went over to France for the funeral, bless him. And obviously the parents came over to England a few times and were here for the upcoming trial. Sidebar, I'll talk about the court, what happened in court, but Levi Bellfield called the parents scum in court.
God, I mean,
no words.
No.
So the police started looking at Amelie's phone records. As a reminder, she entered the Green at 10:05. 10:15, her body clinging to life is found. At 10:23, so 8 minutes after she is found dying, her phone pings on Walton Bridge and then disappears. So Walton Bridge is fairly close. When a phone disappears, doesn't ping anymore, it means either it's out of range, it's broken, or the battery's removed, or that it's thrown into water. And remember, this ping was on Walton Bridge. So Colin made the executive decision to dive around Walton Bridge. Not him personally, I'm sure he could. He's fabulous. But he got police divers to dive, and he himself will claim that he had a few incidents in this investigation where he just had a massive stroke of luck, and this was one of them. Because on the second dive, they bring up a key ring and a Sony Discman. Remember them?
Yeah. Now,
these two things were things that they knew were missing from Amelie's handbag.
Okay.
The key ring, to help out even more with the investigation, like Amelie from the grave, well, she wasn't in the grave yet, but Amelie from above, trying to offer her assistance. The key ring was a picture of her on a log flume, either at Thorpe Park or Chessington World of Adventures.
So Levi stole this from her bag?
So they knew it was hers, obviously. It literally had a photo of her on it. So I put here, lesson people, make your items easily identifiable as yours. So the police never found the phone, but they didn't need to at this point because they found the key ring, they found the Discman, they knew her phone and her stuff had been brought, supposedly by the killer, from Twickenham Green to Walton Bridge, and they now had parameters to look on CCTV. So they looked on all the routes between Twickenham Green and Walton Bridge because there's a few different ways that you could do that journey. They didn't want to assume that the killer had taken the most direct journey. They looked at all of them. So I'm going to show you a map of this area, okay? No, I'm not going to show you a map of this area because I don't have one, but here's a picture of Twickenham Green. This is where she was found, near the cricket field. The bottom left-hand corner of the green is where you have the cricket house, clubhouse. Top right-hand corner is Arthur's, that restaurant that I told you.
Okay, cool, yeah.
Okay, so police allocated 7 instead of the usual 2 police officers to monitor the CCTV. They combed through 1,500 hours of CCTV frame by frame.
Mm-hmm.
And Colin faced resistance in a lot of his, obviously everyone had an opinion about how they would do the investigation, right?
Mm.
But he just stood firm. And about a month into the investigation, they had a breakthrough. They saw that the bus camera had picked up a white van parked by the green at the time of the murder. It
Mm-hmm.
was there for less than 8 minutes, which is quite strange at that time of the night.
Mm-hmm.
Again, going back to what it's like at this time, we did not order online nearly as much. Like now we
Mm-hmm.
see vans zipping and everywhere, left, right, and center, doing deliveries all the time. I think at this, if this happened now, people would be less confused by why a van is there for 8 minutes.
Yeah.
Now we would assume Amazon drop-off delivery, right? Before that, it had been driving around the green for 40 minutes. So it was picked up multiple occasions, driving around the green and the neighboring streets for 40 minutes before. It was literally hunting a vulnerable person.
Jesus. Gives me the creeps.
I know. However, the police couldn't get the registration number off the CCTV. I think loads of improvements have been made since, but at the time it was not possible. But there were some distinctive things about this. Sorry, I'm just looking to see if I have a photo about that. But yeah, he's basically driving around so much. They could note, the van had some distinctive features anyways that could help start locating it. One headlight was out, and the wheel trim was missing off one of the wheels, and there were also defects to the back of the van. Because of the van and Amelie timestamps on CCTV, we know that the van and Amelie walking back home crossed paths on Hampton Road. Also, because of the timestamps of the CCTV, Amelie was walking fairly leisurely, but she slowed down for a while. So they think that the van driver stopped for some conversation with her.
Okay.
Potentially to proposition her.
Yeah.
At this point, DCI Colin, the legend, was facing criticism for focusing on the van and not just rounding up all the sex offenders and usual suspects. But it sounds like DCI Colin was too busy doing some actual police work. He had a very strong lead and he was going for it. So to note, it was a white courier van. They finally identified it. Colin went to Ford, and it was a Ford courier van, and learned that there were approximately 25 registered in the UK. They were
only 25.
25,000, registered in the UK. The problem was, though, obviously it's quite often used in businesses, white van.
Yeah.
And a van might be registered up north, but be used in operation down south and vice versa. So they tried to locate which ones were registered locally and then found out, but this one is actually being used in Birmingham or this one's in Scotland. And then they realized, the reverse is true as well. Ones that are, registered in Manchester might be in the Twickenham area.
Yeah.
So that led to a bit of a dead end. So he had officers on footbridges over the A316, which I can hear from my house, and some of the major roads in the area into town and surrounding villages, making note of registration numbers of white vans. I just want to say that at this point, they were starting to ask people to, at some point, come forward if they had a white van. And Paul's dad, my partner's dad,
got one at the time?
Yeah.
Oh
and
my God.
Lives locally. So he had to go to the police and be like, hey, I have a van. I'm not a murderer, though.
Oh, God. So what did they do? Did they ask him questions?
They just, I don't know how, but they eliminated him. I'm guessing because his van didn't have these very distinctive features. So at this point, we have Joanne Collins entering the story. So Levi has a few ex-girlfriends that come into the story, and one in particular that he was with at the time of the arrest. These women are victims of his also. Again, following off the last episode, it's very easy to victim blame people that are in abusive relationships, but just know that sometimes these things can happen without you realizing. And I strongly suspect that these women feared their lives and knew that this man was dangerous, and really were scared and intimidated by him. So Joanne Collins, she's Levi Bellfield's ex. So she was one that got away. Uh, by the way, at this point, I just want to mention Levi had 11 children.
Oh my God.
Which is just a lot of children.
His poor kids. Jesus Christ.
I know. I feel so bad for them that they have this in their legacy.
Mm-hmm.
She told the police that she had found pictures of blonde women when she lived with Levi, where the pictures themselves were stabbed. So apparently he has a history of hating blonde women. I couldn't find out why he hates blonde women, but he had a hatred of women in general.
Is this something to do with his mother?
I don't know. Levi used to work on doors. Maybe he was rejected by them. Maybe he saw how vulnerable young women are. And he was, at the time, working as an illegal car clamper. This guy is just scum in so many different ways. So he'd see someone parked. He'd put up a sign saying car clamping operating in this area, take a picture of the car next to the sign, clamp the car, and then wait around and make that person pay him cash.
Oh, God.
To unclamp the car. Be like, look, there's a sign.
I mean, it's the least of his crimes, but it just helps to build a picture of what type of person this guy is.
Yeah, and to continue building the picture, I know we shouldn't always judge someone, definitely not on who their family is. Maybe we can judge them a little bit more on who their friends are. Not entirely, but I think when you've got friends like this, Brian O'Shaughnessy, who was later one of the bailiffs on Can't Pay, Will Take It Away. You know that show? That's like the nicest friend I could find.
Oh, God.
Another one is a man called Suraj Garu, who is a convicted pedophile, convicted of abducting a 14-year-old girl from a children's home.
Oh, my God.
And forcing her into sexual activity. Also friends with Victor Kelly, convicted in 2005 for offering an underage girl, a 12-year-old, cocaine.
Jesus,
already bad enough.
Where the fuck did he find these people?
And Victor Kelly was about 60 at the time, so he was considerably older than this girl.
That Levi.
But wait, I haven't even finished the sentence.
God. Okay.
Because offering a 12-year-old cocaine is bad enough. But he was offering it so that she would have sex with him.
Oh, God. I mean, I kind of assumed. Oh, God.
Yeah.
Okay.
So these people come up in various ways in the future. That's why I'm mentioning them. But also, again, building a picture. Like, I could not, no way would I ever have a drink with these people.
Yeah.
I would interview them on their crimes.
It's just awful. Like attracts like, huh? I mean,
that's the most I could interact with these people. So then someone calls in a tip that they were looking at, when they were looking at Ford Couriers, that basically this guy remembered looking for a Ford Courier and the garage mentioning that they had sold one to someone who was a wheel clamper. And so they came in with a tip because they must have said that they suspected this van was used in the wheel clamping business. So this guy said, yeah, I was trying to buy a van and it was gone. You know, when you turn up and the car you're wanting to look at online is not there anymore. And it had been sold to someone wheel clamping. So he, the Leach brothers, remember our fellow crime-fighting siblings? The Leach brothers were local. And so they knew this garage. They knew the garage dealer from previous dealings. And so they went to go and ask about this van, and they found out that it had been sold to Levi Bellfield, and it had a number of speeding and parking tickets on it. So now we have Levi Bellfield coming into the equation. In a sick twist, they matched the phone number the dealer had to one that Levi used because he previously offered his mobile phone number to the authorities. How? Well, surprise, surprise, Levi is a racist as well.
Oh, God.
He had issues with his neighbor. I mean, this story is kind of laughable. It's the only real laughable part of the story. But he had problems with a neighbor who he assumed was Pakistani. So he called the counterterrorism squad on him.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
The neighbor is actually Scottish of Italian descent. Fucking idiot. But he, in this case, had left his number, and by chance it was the same mobile number that he had used with the dealer. So they now have a mobile phone number linked to Levi Bellfield. It's estimated that Bellfield used around 20 numbers at the time. So this is such a stroke of luck. The van dealer had seen the vehicle recently and said that the back of the van had been changed two metal welded plates had been added, which had been picked up on the CCTV, and the windows had been painted white. So again, confirmation about these distinctive features. I want to ask, because I'm not entirely sure I'll finish in 20 minutes. You have to leave at 1:45?
2 at very latest.
Okay, let me go through. They checked Levi's records, and he had a few convictions. But like very few convictions, but lots in his records. For example, in May 2004, he was arrested for abducting a pub landlord. But the key to this was that it was, well, the key was that he had abducted this landlord in a Toyota Previa, which was a white people carrier.
Why did he abduct a landlord? What do you want to do with him?
I don't know, but the key is like,
okay.
The Toyota Previa, which was a white people carrier. And what do we remember from the Kate Sheedy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Jesus,
they searched and found this car. Colin linked it then to the hit and run on Kate Sheedy. This is so sad, because if this had been caught at the time, Amelie would not have been killed. There was a mix-up with the security cameras and the dates of the security cameras they need to use, because there was a security camera from a pub nearby. And basically what it meant was the actual security camera footage at the time of the attack on Kate Sheedy had not been watched until Colin and his team looked back into it. And there they found this Toyota Previa, which was linked to Levi Bellfield, coming and going from the crime scene direction at the time. So now, this was heartbreaking. Colin had to go and tell Amelie, bless him, he told Amelie's parents, "I'm really sorry, but you understand what this means? It means that we could have caught the murderer before he actually..."
God. I would have left that out and not said that to their parents. Not sure I would have.
I don't know whether it helps or not, but it's just,
I don't think
that's him
so.
for being totally transparent, at least. I suppose he told them because he knew it was going to come out, and he'd rather they found out about it from him before they saw it in the media, perhaps. But now, this is the important bit, it now makes Levi #1 suspect, not just in the Amélie de Lagrange case, but also Kate Sheedy. 11th of November 2004, this is 3 months after Amelie's murder. Colin is looking at Levi's records and sees that in 2002, he lived at Collingwood Place, Walton-on-Thames.
Okay.
So, remember Walton features? Because
the bridge
stuff was found thrown off Walton Bridge. Colin thinks that must be why Levi knew Walton enough to drive there and throw Amelie's handbag into the river. Colin goes to see where Levi used to live, but it's actually not near the river. And what he notices, this is Colin just doing bog standard, basic police work that probably gets missed a lot, but this is why he's a legend. So he realized when he went to go and visit where Levi used to live, that it was right near the station and right near where Millie Dowler disappeared in 2002.
Oh my God. I didn't know that he was wondering when you brought up Millie Dowler at the start. I didn't realize she was linked to this.
I know, because it was, he was tried for it at a separate time, which I think is why it sometimes gets missed. But basically, Millie was on a train with some friends, and instead of getting off at her home on the Hersham train station, she stayed on for an extra stop to Walton-on-Thames to get chips with her friends. She left her friends at the bus stop by the station. So she's literally saying goodbye to her friend at the bus stop. About 100 meters further down the road in the direction she's going, there's CCTV cameras, and she is not picked up there. So she disappeared in a 100-meter stretch of road. It's bright daylight at this time. So, you know, when you're like, don't walk at night on your own, it's bright daylight.
That's fucking terrifying, isn't it? When things like that happen in the day, because you are just never safe.
Yep. But she walked past Collingwood Place, where Levi was living at the time. The building across the road didn't pick her up going past Collingwood Place. So we know exactly where she was abducted from. Her body was found 6 months later by foragers in Hampshire, which is about 25 miles away. Bellfield also knew this area of Hampshire very well because they had horse riding facilities nearby, and that's where his ex Joanna used to go ride horses, and Levi used to go with her many times. Millie was strangled and lightly concealed in the woods. Um, sorry, next bit is quite hard. I will come back to Millie. But Levi had a flat in Hanworth known as the raping room,
Oh God.
where him and his gross friends would take young girls.
Oh God.
He has sold drugs and beaten and raped almost every partner he's ever had.
Jesus.
He exploits wherever and whoever he can.
This guy is actually the definition of pure evil. There's no crime really that you haven't talked about with this guy.
If he didn't commit it, it's because he didn't need to at that time to get what he wanted. But anything he needed to do to get what he wanted was done. Even employees, not a surprise, made complaints, came out of the woodwork and said that he was abusive. So one was a guy called Peter Rodriguez, who came forth at one point, or was found, I don't know. He said that he was intimidated by him into letting Levi store drugs at his mother's flat while his mother was in hospital. So he knew that this mother was in hospital, that she had this empty flat while she was in there. And he stored a bunch of drugs there. He also used this place to get his 16-year-old girlfriend to groom a 14-year-old girl. Now, I want to say in this country, I know it's different in the States and it's different state by state, but in this country, the age of consent is 16. So when I say 16-year-old girlfriend, it's not illegal. It's just very gross. But the 14-year-old, totally illegal. He drugs the friend, and him and his friends take turns raping her. Rodriguez was opposed to what he was doing, so Levi attacked him with a hammer.
Oh my God.
He died 3 times on the operating table, but survived.
Oh my God. I didn't know all this part of the story.
Levi was arrested for this attack, but bailed out because there wasn't enough evidence. This was 6 weeks before Amelie's attack. So imagine if he had been caught for that one.
Jesus Christ, they had a lot of fucking opportunities.
And there were witnesses to that attack. But whether they retracted their statements, so forth, didn't want to literally pin. I mean, one of the witnesses was Levi's friend, one of the ones I mentioned before. So once Levi became a suspect in the Amelie case and then in the Millie case, Colin knew that he was extremely dangerous and obviously likely to attack again. He wanted to bring Levi in right away, but he knew that he needed more evidence, and his superiors wanted to surveil Levi for longer. So he was under surveillance from this point, 24/7. Levi is under surveillance on a Sunday in Uxbridge, again, sort of north of the area that we were previously in. There were 2 girls at a bus stop, and Levi engaged them in conversation. The girls, he propositioned them basically. The girls got on a bus and Levi drove off. One police car followed the bus to continue the surveillance. One police car followed Levi to continue the surveillance, while another police car followed the bus to find the 2 girls and to ask them what had happened there. They said Levi had asked them how old they were, and when they said 14, he said that he liked them young.
Oh, God.
So gross. Luckily, they had an escape when their bus came. They jumped on the bus and they got away. Then police link another possible case to Levi, one of Sonia Salvatierra. She was 26, 9 months before the murder of Amelie on Third Cross Road, which is very close to the Green.
Yeah.
Someone reported that their nanny had been attacked. I guess they saw the news of Amelie and made a connection. Sonia was back in her homeland of Peru at the time, but police obtained the triage hospital report, which gives info on the attack. They contacted Sonia in Peru, and she described her attacker, and it basically was a description of Levi. At this point, News of the World interferes. Surprise, surprise. For those of you who haven't been following the case or don't know about News of the World, they are scum of the earth tabloid. They are not in operation anymore because of the bad press, pun intended, that they got. They had a whole privacy case against them because it came out that they had been hacking a bunch of celebrities' mobile phone voicemails and all sorts. But one of the accounts mobile phones that they hacked into was Millie Dowler's voicemail after she went missing, thoroughly interfering with the investigation.
Mm-hmm.
What's worse is that when her voicemail got full, because remember 2004, you probably didn't have very much space in your voicemail inbox, they deleted messages to make room for more.
Oh my God.
So not only possibly deleting crucial evidence, but also led the police to think that Millie was still alive at this point, because obviously there's activity on her mobile phone account.
Oh God, that newspaper, God, doesn't even deserve that name, that tabloid fucking rag. I can't, I didn't, oh God.
Oh, so if you want to read more, this is where Rebecca Brooks came up in my Guardian article. Lady, I don't know how you sleep at night. So News of the World had found out somehow that the police had a suspect, and that they were and the News of the World were going to run the story 2 days before Sonia.
How the fuck can they do this stuff? They really interfere with real life cases, you know?
I know. So they were going to run the story about Levi being a suspect 2 days before Sonia was going to arrive in the UK and do a police lineup. So if it's in the press that he's a suspect, they can't do a lineup anymore, because the defense will just argue, well, she saw his face in the paper as a suspect, so of course she picked him out. This would destroy the credibility of anything she said during this exercise, if his face was already plastered all over the papers, and obviously it would have been a huge story. The police had to then negotiate with News of the World. Like, can you imagine having all this shit going on and having to negotiate with these?
They have absolutely like no shred of decency whatsoever.
They should be able to call up and say, if you run the story, it'll fuck up the investigation. And they go, okay, sorry, tell us when we can run it.
Was this one of Rupert Murdoch's papers?
Oh, I can't remember. But instead, the compromise that they had to reach with News of the World was that if they held off on releasing Levi as a suspect, they would be allowed to have a reporter come with the police along for the arrest. So get an exclusive of the arrest. It's disgusting that they even had to do this. You know? I mean, women's safety is in the balance here.
Yeah.
So the 22nd of November, 2004, this was the day of the arrest. They needed to get warrants to search all of his properties and vehicles at the same time. So in order not to give him the heads up and be able to clean or remove anything, whatever. But Levi had 8 addresses and 7 vehicles associated with him.
Oh my gosh.
He also had over 42 aliases.
Jesus, this guy was busy.
I don't know how he managed to fucking keep up with all this shit.
No, I mean, yeah, anyway.
So one of the arrest teams goes to West Drayton, where Levi is currently living. They do a search of the property. They don't find him. And his partner, his girlfriend at the time, again, another victim, Emma Mills, indicates that he's hiding in the loft. So, but this posed a problem, because how do you go and get someone from the loft when he is known for hitting people over the head? For the Americans listening, a loft is an attic. And quite often in this country, you don't have separate staircase go up. You'll have like a little ladder that you pull down to go into it or something like that. But it will normally be a small little opening that you have to climb through head first. So it was a dilemma, right? Because obviously they don't want to put the police in danger and have anyone else be a victim of Levi. So there's loads of debate about calling in experts and then so forth. And then another legend, in my eyes, police officer Norman Griffiths, just went up there and got him to avoid, in his own words, as quoted in Colin's book, to avoid a load of fucking about.
Oh, good on him. What was his name?
Listen, Norman Griffiths, we love you, but
Norman, well done.
You put yourself in harm's way there. It paid off, but bless you.
He deserves an OBE.
Really, he does. So Levi was hiding naked behind a bit of insulation.
Oh God, I don't even want to know why he was naked, honestly.
Oh, well, it was an early morning raid, so he's possibly, but just the thought of him naked. The thought of him, but Levi was sent to Heathrow police station, which is set up for more dangerous prisoners. Levi's first word to my dear Colin Sutton was, "Fuck off, prick." Which I think Colin would have been totally okay with.
Mm-hmm.
So because of Levi's aliases, they were particularly keen when processing him on taking loads of pictures of his tattoos as the sort of identifiable features, right? Levi did not like having his photograph taken while he was naked. One police officer was heard by Colin saying, "Come on, Levi, we've all seen dicks before." And that kind of relaxed Levi. But then the other police officer there said, "Yes, but never quite that small."
Yes. You know, I'm so glad you added these lighthearted details. I was getting fucking depressed by this story.
I know. Right, but listen, and to be honest, Colin Sutton's mannerisms is like that. He manages to throw in so much humanity into
I love him.
I love him so much. But and I just want to say we are not okay with body shaming, but in this instance, I will allow because
we'll let it go.
It is against a pedo rapist murderer. So I will talk all day long about his tiny penis. Right? So police officers took his shoes off when he was arrested, as is standard, but failed to notice a string in his elasticated waistband of his tracksuit bottoms. So Levi made this pathetic attempt to hang himself from a fixture 5 foot off the floor. He was 6'1".
God, he wasn't that smart.
It's like, you must have some form of intelligence to manage to get away with all this shit. How are you now being so fucking stupid? He then tried drowning himself in the cell toilet, and police had to rescue him, which I think must have been a really difficult task, because that instinct to just leave him, or even
to rescue him,
so bad to even say, but just to leave him to it. The doctor on site examined him after his suicide attempt, in quotation marks, and said he was fine, but he had really high blood pressure. And this is what I think Levi was into, like trying to get some either medical exemption or mental health allowance or something.
So wait, he stuck his head down the toilet?
Yeah, and tried to hang himself. I mean, he was a big guy, and I can't imagine particularly healthy. So it's not surprising he had high blood pressure. So he was sent to hospital. But luckily, this played out well. This backfired against Levi, because the time that you are in hospital does not count towards your time being detained by the police. So it gave the police more time for their inquiries. When they were eventually allowed to interview him, which I think was like a week later, he had a solicitor that he knew and had asked for. When they asked him about the rape and abuse of former partners, there was a conflict of interest because the solicitor had represented one of his former partners. So the duty solicitor had to take over and advised him to give no comment. So for hours he was questioned and just replied no comment to everything. And if you want to, I admit I watched a little bit, but like 5 minutes, and then I was done emotionally. You can watch a lot of clips of his interviews on YouTube. So there's a noticeable turn when he's now getting advice from the duty solicitor that he should just not talk. Levi would literally turn his back to the interviewers. He would spin around in the chair, and he would only respond vaguely to pictures and maps, but he would often flip them over so he wouldn't have to look at them. So again, the genius that is Colin started printing the same picture or map on both sides of the paper. So even when he flipped them over, he was forced to look at it.
Do you know what? I keep thinking, what the fuck is Levi Bellfield's backstory? Who were his parents? What do they do? What the fuck happened to him as a kid? Because obviously
I actually didn't cover that so much, but I do mention his mom later on. So Sonia was flown over from Peru, as we said. But frustratingly, she couldn't pick Levi out of a lineup. But luckily, they didn't need this. So I mentioned Emma Mills. She was his partner of 10 years at the time of the arrest, and she became a key witness. She's so brave because she was a victim of violence at the hand of Levi. She was too frightened to leave him. He often locked her in the house. She wasn't allowed her own phone or money. She was often beaten and raped. And one time, she was even raped at Walton Bridge, where Amelie's belongings were found. Emma and the ex Joanna gave evidence to hold Levi in prison. Listen to this. I mentioned about the rape and abuse of the former partners. These charges were never even taken to court because there was so much worth, i.e. the murders. But these charges are what enabled the police to keep him in prison because he wasn't allowed bail for them. and give them time. They were holding charges to give them time to investigate the murders and collect more evidence in the murders and the attack on Kate Sheedy, who survived, but it was clearly an attempted murder. But what does it say about you that you are charged of 9 rapes on a previous partner, 4 GBH attacks, grievous bodily harm on a partner, and 6 drug rapes on teenage girls between the ages of 13 and 16. And those are the least worst crimes that are used just to hold you in prison.
Do you know what's so sad? This one person, and I'm just keep thinking about all his kids, all his victims, all the people affected by this one person whose lives are like destroyed and ruined and affected.
Okay, so going back to the Kate Sheedy attack, right? They're going back, they're collecting more evidence so that when it goes to court, this fucker won't get away. They had already, going back, looking over it, found the CCTV camera that had been footage that had been overlooked, that placed the Toyota Previa that was linked to Levi leaving and arriving and leaving from the scene. They literally can see it following the bus that Kate Sheedy's on and then driving away in the other direction after the attack. 40 minutes after the Kate Sheedy attack, Levi had a 16-year-old girlfriend. While he had the other girlfriends, obviously. Surprise, surprise, he's a cheater. But his 16-year-old girlfriend, he was subletting a flat on the Oriole Estate in Hanworth, in Crosby Court, which I have a picture of because my dear friend Leanna lives right around the corner from this estate. It is sadly rough as fuck. This is a sign. You can see Crosby Close is the gray ones on this side, on the right-hand side. So that's the and this is the kind of sign as you go into the estate. It's not pleasant being around there. Like, yeah. So my friend Leanna lives nearby, and I asked her to kindly risk her life and go and take pictures. But Levi was subletting a flat in the Crosby Court area of the Oriole Estate, and he kept his 16-year-old girlfriend there, who regularly hung out there with her 14-year-old sister. 40 minutes after the attack, he comes into this flat around 1 a.m. He gets a torch and he walks out. She's recording this because she's playing around with the phone that she has. Again, 2004, video footage on your phones was fairly new, exciting thing, not great quality. Police get this footage and can hear, so basically they've got timestamps on the video, but if the phone time is not set correctly, the timestamp on the video won't be correct.
Okay.
So they can't use the timestamp to prove anything because the defense can just say, well, the phone time wasn't set right. So what they did was they watched this video and they can hear music in the background. And so they tried to pinpoint because they think it's coming from the TV or the radio. So they're trying to figure out what it is so that they can try to get an idea of when that was played on the radio or on TV to timestamp officially that video. And someone hears it and goes, that's Wheel of Fortune. So TV stations, as you know, they keep very strict schedules and they can tell exactly when the theme tune for Wheel of Fortune was played that night. And so they can officially timestamp the footage. But again, stroke of luck. That someone knows what the Wheel of Fortune theme tune sounds like. Going back to the Marsha McDonnell murder, on the bus that she got off of, you can see a CCTV footage of a car slowing down to the crossroads that she was approaching. It was a silver Vauxhall Corsa, which they can attribute and associate with Levi at the time of the murder. Again, almost impossible to see the license plate, but experts give around 600,000 possible plates. So now, dear Colin has the difficult task of proving that Vauxhall Corsa was Levi's, because they know he had a silver Vauxhall Corsa, but obviously that's not enough. It's a very popular car. So first they eliminate all of the non-cars from that list, meaning all the vans, whatever. Then all the dark cars, all the darker colors, because it's silver, so they took out any that, left, I'm assuming, the whites and the silvers and the whatever. So they're narrowing it down. And then eventually they've got a much shorter list. And guess who's still on that list? Levi. So at this point, it's a lot of circumstantial evidence, but police were really concerned about him getting away with it. So they start approaching his contacts. And Colin went to BBC Crime Watch for an appeal about the vehicles. And a guy called Richard Hughes, a friend of Levi's partner, said he knew that Levi had modified the van. Remember, it had a couple of modifications. He also said that he was asked to get rid of blood-stained shirts after the disappearance of Millie Dowler.
Oh, God.
Yeah, someone said that they knew how the damage to the van was done, that the wheel trim fell off when Levi hit a curb. So another one of his associates was there. And they could also prove that the van was linked to the murder with the CCTV footage. But now what they need to do is prove that that van that's linked to Levi and linked to the murder, but that Levi was actually the one driving it on the night of Amelie's murder. Because he could just be like, I have lots of cars, I have my businesses, I loaned it to a friend, right? I can't even remember who it was that night. His girlfriend Emma comes up with the goods. That day, again, this is like such a stroke of luck. That day, Levi picked her up, was meant to pick her up to go to Tesco's in Hayes when they were living at West Drayton at the time. But he forgot to, so she gets a taxi to Tesco's. Levi calls her, says, where are you? And she's like, I needed to go. So I took a taxi. He says he'll come meet her at Tesco's. He takes the two older kids, because at this point they have 2 kids and a 5-month-old baby. He takes the older kids across the road to Toys R Us.
Oh my God. I know these places. Like I'm about to drive through West Drayton now to go pick up.
Yeah. He called Emma from Toys R Us, linking him with this phone of that day. Then they went home together. Levi reverses into the drive, lets Emma get 2 kids and the newborn baby into the house on her own with her, all her shopping. Never mind how they all fit in this courier van. It's not a big van, and I'm sure it doesn't have the appropriate amount of seats. But anyways, he's making a phone call in the meantime, is sitting in the front seat, letting Emma do all of this stuff on her own. And then Levi leaves at around 9 p.m. This is the stroke of luck. Emma goes around half an hour later to make a cup of tea and realizes she forgot to buy milk. So she calls Levi and to ask him to pick some up on his way home. Normally, when Levi's off committing his crimes, he switches off his phone. But he forgot to this time. So this call actually went through, at which point it went dead. So he must have been like, oh, fuck, and hung up and turned his phone off. But this was enough to ping Levi on the phone that we know he had when he made the call from Toys R Us, when he made the call in his driveway. It was enough to ping him, his phone, near Twickenham Green. What a stroke of luck. Now we're going back to Amanda Millie Dowler. Colin needs to convince the Surrey police to consider Levi for the Dowler case because they have their own investigation. As we heard, the police had a suspect, and the police departments and the police stations don't always play nice together. So the police had been looking at a red car that came out of Levi's road when Millie went missing, but they thought it was a Mark II Vauxhall Corsa, and it's actually a Daewoo. So I don't know how they got that wrong. They must look very similar. But Emma's car, Emma lived in Collingwood Place with Levi at the time. It was her place, and he was like living there as one of his many addresses. Emma's car was a red Daewoo, and it was actually the only red one registered in Surrey. So imagine if they picked up on that detail sooner, they would have got, a lot further, much quicker. Emma told how she had moved to Collingwood Place actually to escape Levi, but he convinced her / scared her into taking him back. she had that red car while she was living there, and Levi often used it. At the time of Millie's disappearance, Emma was house sitting for a friend in West Drayton, so she wasn't staying in the home, but Levi had access to both the home and the keys to the car, because her house keys and her car keys were on the same keyring. And she confirmed that Levi had the keys, and that was her car in the video. So eventually, Levi was charged with the following: the murder of Amélie de Lagrange, the attempted murder of Kate Sheedy, the abduction of Anne-Marie Rennie. That was one of the first ones I mentioned. You remember the car pulled up, tried to grab her?
Yes.
And the judge ruled that it was an abduction, not even an attempted one. It was an actual abduction because her feet were lifted off the ground.
Wow. Okay. Wow.
Interesting, right?
I didn't know that qualified an abduction. Okay. Good to
But
know.
I like that, because you got to take this shit seriously. Okay,
Exactly,
she got away.
yeah.
But if that was by chance and her own determination, whatever it was, I don't know exactly how that played out when she got away. But if she hadn't, that would be a rape and a murder.
Yeah.
So attempted murder of Irma Dragoshi, again, someone that got hit over the head, and the murder of Marcia McDonald. So now we're going to go to court, okay? The case goes to court. Brian Altman is the prosecutor, i.e. against Levi. And he opens up with a statement that between October 2001 and August 2004, 5 women were violently attacked, 2 of which were murdered. And, it could be more. Those are the ones that we know about. Yeah, okay, this was a little bit of a weird side note. During the trial, Amelie's parents came over from France, understandably, and they had got to know Colin Sutton very well. We talked about how respectful he tried to be of them, and how much he kept them abreast of the situation and so forth. What I found weird was during the court case, the police and Amelie's parents decided to go out for dinner one night. So they went to Arthur's on Twickenham Green. And again, we mentioned that we don't know how people grieve and how people feel when they lose a loved one. I've certainly never been in this situation, but it just seems a bit weird.
I couldn't do it, but I don't know, unless they sort of felt like
it made them feel closer.
That's where she last was. Yeah, that's where she last was. I don't know. That's all
she probably went there loads, because obviously it's a restaurant very close to her house. Yeah, so it's, for me, it's a weird one, because you would, from every table, you're looking out over the green.
Yeah.
And to them, that green means something.
All I can think is that that's where she last was, and they somehow felt closer to her being there.
Yeah. It just gave me shivers, because it was just like, oh, those poor parents, clearly super brave and courageous in a way that I don't know if I could be. Okay, so this is not usual, but Levi actually took the stand during our trial. It wasn't really a surprise to anyone, because he's clearly some kind of narcissist who thinks he's smarter than everyone else. But listen to this. He at one point he walked up to the witness stand and pretended the mic was a lollipop and was like licking the mic in front of the jurors. And it's like, whether you're innocent or guilty, at least give the impression you're taking it fucking seriously.
It just shows such a lack of remorse. Of course he has no remorse because he's sick, but such an arrogance,
Again, even if he was innocent.
But a lot of these people were. Remember Ted Bundy? They're really cocky, arrogant people. Sorry,
I thought you were going to say a lot of these people were innocent, like Ted Bundy. Yeah, but there's something clearly a bit narcissistic.
That's what I mean. Put it lightly. Arrogance, and they thrive off of that.
And the arrogance grows the more and more they manage to get away with without being caught. So yeah, he thought he could charm his way out of anything. He claimed when Marcia was attacked, he was at home watching Martin Bashir and Michael Jackson documentary. So Marcia McDonald, if you remember, sounds familiar, right? So
What was that guy called?
So codename Sharp was
Yeah,
the
that's
initial
it.
suspect for the Marsha McDonald case. And he claimed that he was at home watching the documentary. That was the night that it actually came out. So again, not that strange that someone might be watching the documentary the following night. I'm sure they repeated it. You could record stuff, but there's just something that's uncomfortable about the fact that he's using the same alibi as the guy who got off for it.
Would he have known?
I don't know, but it just feels too coincidental. I think he would have known.
Yeah.
So was this again him being cocky, or I don't know. Levi, again, he took the stand and he gave evidence for 3 days for the defense, and then gave evidence for the prosecutor for 5 days. So he was in the stand for 8 days. Oh, can you imagine having to listen to 8 days of his fucking shit?
I couldn't even look at this guy.
So he claims he was in the Twickenham area on the night of the Amelie murder, but that he was in a different van. The defense's main argument of defense against the Amelie murder was that there were loads of people around the green, restaurants, pubs, the Prince Blucher, one of my favorites, so forth. Lots of things going on the green, churches and residents, and loads of those people were not investigated. So what they're trying to do there clearly is instill reasonable doubt, because, you're meant to convict without, with no reasonable doubt. And they're clearly trying to cloud the issue and say, well, it could be any of these people. Listen to the closing statement from Levi's own lawyer, William Boyce.
Who took on this case?
I know. I mean, I know that as I don't know if it was sort of state allocated defense lawyer.
How could you sleep at night taking that on and trying to get this guy back into the world?
Well, sometimes I wonder if they sabotage it on purpose, because listen to what his own lawyer said in his closing statement. He asked the jury not to let, in quotation marks, his client demeanor in court to affect their deliberations.
I don't know.
Clearly, after the Mike lollipop incident. But
no, I mean,
can you imagine?
It still sounds like it's in his defense. They're just trying to make excuses, But he's a nice guy outside of court,
outside of the murders and the pedophilia. So the trial took 5 months. I feel so bad for the families of the people that were affected, having to go through that. Can you imagine? The jury took 2 weeks to deliberate. At some point during the 2 weeks, they were told that they didn't have to come to a unanimous decision, that it could just be a majority verdict.
How was there any doubt?
I know, but... So on 25th of February 2008, the jury came back to give their verdict. And they were giving a verdict on each of the cases. The 2 attacks, Irma and Anna Maria, Irma and Anna Maria both survived. They couldn't reach a verdict, so they were going to continue their deliberations. But they had reached a verdict on the 3 murder/attempted murder charges on Marsha, Kate, and Amelia. The Marsha McDonald case, the jury came back 10-2, meaning guilty. And at that point in Colin's book, bless him, I have so much love for this man. You won't hear me sort of going on about my love for a police officer very often, but he was very happy and excited at this point because he felt that was their weakest case. And if they got a guilty verdict for that one, the weakest one in terms of evidence, then it was looking good for the rest of them, right? So Kate, 11-1, guilty. And Amelia de Lagrange, unanimous guilty verdict. Then I told you that the other 2 attacks with the 2 survivors they were going to continue their deliberations onwards, But overnight, the press fucked it again.
Was it News of the World again?
I actually don't know, but basically they released that Levi was also a suspect in the Millie Dowler case. Up until this point, that was not public knowledge. So the other 2 charges were dropped against Irma and Anna Maria because it's now prejudicial.
Mm-hmm.
It's now considered that the jury will not be able to give an unbiased deliberation
Jesus,
on those.
the press really messed up this case badly.
Yeah, and the sentencing hadn't been done yet. So they didn't even wait to see what Levi's sentencing was going to be. Not that that makes it much better, but if they knew 100% he's in jail for life, at that point, at least these 2 extra attacks and the verdicts wouldn't have made a difference on his sentence in jail.
Yeah.
But they didn't know that at this point. So imagine if he just, for some crazy fucked up parallel universe, he only got like 20 years. But then he could have had extra years added for these 2 other sentences. So, you know, the ramifications in this case, awful. And again, to get justice for Irma and Anna Maria and their families, picks me off. So sentencing was the next day. So like I said, overnight, the press fucked things up. But the sentencing for those 3 that he was already deemed guilty for was the next day. Bellfield now refuses to go to court for the sentencing. He got 3 tariffs and no possibility for parole.
What's tariffs?
Life sentences.
Oh, okay.
With no possibility for parole, which is important. He's currently in HMP Frankland in County Durham, so up north, which for me, I'm sorry for the people in County Durham, but it felt like such a relief that he's not still local. I just didn't like the thought of this guy anywhere near me. Think like if he was in Feltham, you know, Wormwood Scrubs or one of the ones closer to us, I would just have nightmares. Okay, so now the papers are allowed to run that he's a suspect for the Millie Dowler case, and they went wild with it. Because obviously he's already been deemed a 2-time murderer. He's attempted murder on several other people. And if he's convicted of Millie Dowler, he will be officially a serial killer. There's lots of different definitions of serial killer.
Yeah, I was going to ask how many do they have to?
I think in the States it's 2. It has to be different from a spree killing. So if you just, sorry, this is really crass, but if you had a machine gun, you went in a crowd and you killed a bunch of people, you're not a serial killer, you're a spree killer or a mass murderer. But a serial killer has time to cool down between each murder, in the sense that they return to their normal life.
Yeah.
And normally the number is 3 victims. So if he was convicted of Millie Dowler, then that makes him a serial killer, which obviously increases the press interest and those interested in the true crime world. Colin the Legend started looking into the previous cases that may have been attributed to Levi and helped in the Millie Dowler case, because we love him. And he found then 6 more other cases worth investigating. Like, this guy never stops.
That could have been linked to him.
Including 2 on the same evening. Now, these 2 were never attributed to the Hampton Hammerer before they knew who it was, or Levi Bellfield when people were looking into it, because those 2 happened in Sussex, which is further south in the UK. 2 hours away. Yeah. Wait, Sussex. Yeah, that's like kind of Brighton area. But at the time, Levi had a clamping contract and was staying in that area. So then they start looking for this red Daewoo that they were convinced that Levi had transported Millie in, whether alive or deceased, which I'll get back to. But here is another case. One day before Millie Dowler disappeared, Rachel Cowles, an 11-year-old girl, so this is the 20th of March, 2002. She was in Shepperton, very close to Walton. There was an attempted abduction. It was reported to police, but there was not much follow-up. And then there was an appeal. When there was an appeal for the red Daewoo, Rachel's mum contacted the police to say that this was the same vehicle that the would-be abductor of her daughter was driving.
Why doesn't the whole of the UK, all their police departments, communicate? Because
there was a lot of
should.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk in
is there no central database for crimes?
In Colin's book, there's a lot of talk about something called the home system, which is the sort of centralized database. But having worked with databases a lot, obviously not police ones, but They are complicated. They are unwieldy. The more they do, the more difficult they are. The more difficult it is getting everyone to know how to use them effectively and also log all the information in it, adding the correct tags and everything. Because you think all of this stuff needs to be imported, needs to be put in, you know, hammer, Twickenham, Dayu, red, tattoos, like all of those tags need to be added in some way. And all of that is time consuming. So I'm guessing, as useful as it is, it's got its shortcomings. And again, if something happens in a different area or seemingly has a different mode of operating, like for example, the Kate Sheedy, I have no doubt that if she had stayed on the same side of the road as that car, he would have got out of the car, tried to abduct her, hit her over the head with a hammer. Because she crossed the road and that was no longer possible in the same way, he hit her. Obviously, that makes it look like a very different person, a different attack. So very, very tricky. And then again, someone like Levi, who's got a million different phones, addresses, vehicles, aliases registered to him. You know, it's a miracle, a shit miracle that he got along so that he got caught. Anyway, so now there's more evidence mounting against this Dayu and Levi in this Dayu. Levi was convicted and charged with Millie Dowler's murder on the 23rd of June, 2011. So three years after he was convicted of the Marcia McDonnell and Amelia Delagrange murder and the attempted murder of Kate Sheedy. The legend that is DCI Colin, he got a commendation, and quite rightly so. Oh, I should say that during the trial for Millie Dowler, Levi refused to give evidence during his trial. So clearly he was a bit less cocky now.
Wow. Okay, can you refuse to do that? I guess so.
Well, like I said, it's not usual for the defense, the defendant, to give evidence. They don't normally go on the stage, on the witness stand. So here's some interesting updates.
Okay.
27th of January, 2016. Surrey police reveal for the first time that Bellfield has admitted to the crime.
Okay. What made him do that?
Up until this point, he had been professing his innocence. So something happened January 2016 that made him confess. Well, let me tell you the circumstances. They were investigating whether he had an accomplice, because as we mentioned, he definitely had shit friends that he committed crimes with. There was at least one occasion where he attacked or attempted to abduct a woman, and there was one of these shit friends in the car with him. So the alleged accomplice was released without charge because there was not enough evidence. Now, I did a little bit of digging, and I told you about his friend. Oh, it makes me feel nauseous. We talked about his friend who is a convicted pedophile, Suraj Garu. Let me share with you my screen. Now, while they were friends, Suraj was around 25. The man released as a suspected accomplice for some of his crimes was 40, which I work out to be roughly this guy's age.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not saying it was him. I'm just saying the ages work out. We know this is a known accomplice.
I don't even want to look at this guy.
I know. I did something for you and for the audience. I have made a timeline entitled "The Scum That Is Levi Bellfield."
Wow.
A timeline. So it goes from his first known attempted abduction to when he confessed. So we'll share that on the socials.
Yeah, wow, that looks good. I mean, you did a good job of the timeline.
Thanks. I thought so too. I just thought it would help clarify the order of events because I jumped back and forth quite a bit, but it's because through investigating this Amélie de Lagrange murder, they looked back and found a bunch of evidence. And then later on, when they were doing this investigation, realized there was this connection with Millie Dowler, which then got prosecuted afterwards. So there's a lot of going back and forth. And so I just thought that timeline would really help
Yeah, we'll post it on social so that everyone can have a look.
So, ironic update that I was also unaware of.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether this is 100% true because I could only find it in the tabloids, but I presume it's because more well-respected newspapers don't want to give him any more time of day. Bellfield now calls himself Yusuf Rahim.
Oh, fuck's sake. What? He's turned to God? For Allah,
Yes.
should I say? Oh, you're joking.
So, the guy that was previously
racist.
get
parole? I mean, he can't get parole, so why is he...
So I found this in the Daily Mail.
Was he also not racist? I mean...
Yeah, he was a massive racist.
Okay.
And also, much of what he did goes against, the word of Islam. So the Daily Mail claims he's a convenience Muslim. But then I tried to look into a bit more because they were saying, he gets better meals. He gets better this, that, and the other. So I was trying to look into what, as a Muslim, you get that's better or different.
I mean, I can only imagine this is for personal gain rather than to absolve himself of his sins.
I can't imagine he gets much better treatment in prison, but I think it's just a very noticeable, obvious way to say, look, I found God. I'm reformed. I've repented. I'm making peace. Fuck knows. But
it seems insincere.
Yeah. As a token Muslim, because we're Palestinian and the large amount of Palestinians are Muslim, even though we are not. And anyways, we're atheists. But I will say as a token Muslim, we don't fucking want you.
No. Jesus Christ. It's an insult, actually, to Islam.
It really is. It just grossed me out even more. Like everything about this guy, right? So this case was just, it's so fascinating because have you noticed something about the evidence?
What have we noticed about the evidence?
It's all CCTV, phone records, car records, and witnesses. There's no DNA.
Why is that? Why isn't there DNA evidence?
Obviously, DNA evidence is preferred because it's seen as much more reliable, although there have been a lot of updates. I think hair DNA samples are no longer admitted in court. I don't take my word for that, but we're realizing that there can be mistakes with DNA and some things are not as reliable as previously thought or whatever. But this case, the evidence was all collected just using good old-fashioned detective work.
Do you know what? Also, I remember hearing the other day, I can't remember if it was a PSA on TV or on the radio, that now London or Hounslow has more CCTV cameras, our borough, because women said it would make them feel safer. I mean, I think fucking everyone will make it, would feel safer with CCTV. And I think we should actually have more of it because clearly, look at this. This case would not have been solved without it.
No, it wouldn't. It was so lucky that these CCTV
and I'll tell you what else. On our road, we're one of the few houses that is rigged up to shit with cameras all around the fucking house because we live in a detached house. Obviously, you know that. And we've got cameras all around the damn place because safety. And so our neighbors are often asking us for the CCTV footage because they don't have it for a start, but also if there's ever burglaries, which there have been, stolen bikes, which there have been, car break-ins, which there have been, people come and ask us for the footage. And I mean, we pick up some interesting things. So that's just like
the time your neighbor's friend drove into their car.
Oh, the car took off. Oh God. One car literally drove over the other.
I think a couple of Deliveroo drivers falling over.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it picks up some funny stuff too. This poor guy just fell. he fell. But anyways, my point was that the power of CCTV. We have solved quite a few mysteries with our CCTV.
And that's obviously at a very local level.
Yeah. This is small time. I mean, just times burglaries and things like that. It actually surprises me that in our whole road, there's 29 houses and only 2 actually have.
And I totally get that people don't like having their privacy infringed on, but like if we're in the public
I'd rather
area,
that and have safety and peace of mind, to be honest with you.
Also, we're Palestinian. People in this country do not know what they're talking about when they say nanny state, impingement on our rights and our freedoms. You don't know what you're talking about. You have all of the freedoms.
First world problems, literally.
Right?
Literally.
So I remember the hoo-ha about like when they were discussing having ID cards, when like so many countries in the world you have ID cards that you're obliged to carry with you at all times. I mean,
I know.
What are you hiding?
I'll be honest with you.
But then they're very happy to have their mobile phone, which literally tracks their every movement, their every financial,
that's it.
Everything.
Exactly. And like, for example, Jim's a heating engineer and he installs those Nest thermostats. People are like, oh no, they're gonna, the government's gonna spy on me through that, or I don't know who they think is gonna spy on them through that. But it's like, what the fuck do you think your phone is? Or are people who like were so against the COVID vaccines being mandatory in certain professions because they don't want their their rights and their choices being infringed upon. But it's like, yeah, but what about seatbelts? How do you feel about that? Because we're supposed to wear those. It's to save your fucking life. So anyway, I don't know. I really noticed, this is really going off on a tangent, but during COVID, the amount of complaints, petty fucking complaints about people, that people were making, petty complaints people were making about trying to be kept safe. Like even like about mask wearing. They would complain about wearing a mask, because it was an infringement on their right of a choice. But they have no fucking idea. When people start complaining about a mask as a hardship, like, honestly, please leave the fucking country and go and look at really some hardships, in other countries. Anyway, I don't even know how we got onto that.
Well, because of CCTV.
Oh yeah, CCTV. Yeah, I'd rather have a camera pointed at me and be safe.
Yeah, especially when you're in public. Like most of us are not doing illegal things in public. So, anyways. DCI,
I mean, this case, that really shows the power of CCTV.
But I just thought it was so interesting that this is a case from the 2000s where there was not a shred of DNA evidence.
Yeah. I didn't even think about that until the very end. Yeah. Until you mentioned it. But exactly. Yeah, I mean, really, actually, it's fascinating, actually, that the significance of CCTV in the solving of this, and actually, in general, digital evidence, like the mobile phone video with Wheel of Fortune, I
know. And I mean, the amount of hours, the thankful lucky breaks.
Well done, Colin. My God.
Colin,
well done.
Yep. So I put here, Levi is Britain's only serial killer to get 3 whole life sentences and will die in prison, thanks to DCI Colin, the Leaches, the Leach brothers, our siblings in crime.
The ones that actually have the qualifications.
The ones that actually did the work and saved the nation. Yeah, them. And their team and everyone involved in bringing this absolute scumbag to justice.
Honestly, sorry, keep going.
I will say that one of the touching moments in Colin's speech and also one of his talks and also in the book was he expressed his joy at being able to read out the list of charges to Levi during his arrest. But he said, looking in that man's eyes, they were black as coal and you could like feel the evil. Oh, got shivers. Yeah. I mean, for a hardened police officer.
It must still affect them though, because...
Oh, of course. And, those police officers, they've got daughters and they've got kids and obviously... So sadly, police officers think this isn't the end and that there will be more cases in the future that will be linked to him. Whether they'll be looked into as thoroughly now.
Sorry, you know what I'm fascinated by is I want to know his history. I always want to know the backstory. I want to know what his mother's story was, his father's story.
One of the talks, they had a special guest, and it was this lady called Jo Brunt who worked with the police force and often in a position as a family liaison officer.
Like, is it nature or nurture?
Yeah, well, that is
I'm going to say both.
Isn't it?
I'm good. Oh, I don't know. I want to say both, but then I don't know.
Surprise, surprise. Jo Brunt, who came on the stage, and she seemed like, I know she couldn't have been because she's a police officer, but she seemed very like mild-mannered and so forth. She, talking about Levi's mum, described the woman as vile because Levi's mum refused any kind of police liaison officer because she insisted her son was innocent. Even so, you would think you'd want to be kept informed of what's going on in the case and whatever, but nope. Nope. She was like, my son's innocent. Which I get. I get the desire to believe that your loved one, especially your child, is innocent or whatever, but you would have thought when the evidence is mounting up and that she would have her own eyewitness evidence of him being a dickhead. There's no way.
There's no way he was an angel at home, there's no way.
There's no way.
Even if she had a good relationship with him, there's no way she didn't see signs of all that.
And I think Joe Brunt also mentioned the first time she met Levi was when he was arrested at 18 for an alleged rape against his partner. She eventually dropped the charges, so he was never convicted of anything and never went to court or anything. But she said even at 18, he's getting accused of rape of a partner. And he was like charmer, kind of like cheeky chappy that thought he could get away with anything. And he did. He did, for a long time.
Do we know about the dad?
Don't know anything about the dad, but I want to tell you something that sent more shivers down me. This amazing talk that I went to with the former Scotland Yard murder squad detective, Steve Gaskin, also legend. He told us at this talk that in 1980, there was a 14-year-old girl who was found murdered on Hounslow Heath. Again, very similar area to Twickenham Green where we're talking about. There was more, I'll put all the links of all the resources in the show notes, but there was an article on this in mylondon.news. So on June 16th, 1980, Patricia Patsy Morris disappeared from Feltham Comprehensive School, so again, same area, during her lunch break. 2 days later, her body was found on Hounslow Heath, just 5-minute walk from her home. According to Wikipedia on this, Peter Tobin was a suspect at one point. He had murdered several young girls and also suspected to be Bible John. But according to Steve Gaskin, Patsy's boyfriend at the time was 12-year-old Levi Bellfield.
Oh my God.
So obviously
that's too much of a coincidence.
Not saying he did it. There's no evidence, but
it's either a really sick coincidence or...
This was only a year before his first conviction, which was for burglary. Obviously, very different crime, burglary to murder. But if you think that it's also about 6 years before his, alleged rape.
God. Just think the story doesn't get worse, and it does.
Patsy was also blonde. So again,
there's
all of that is coincidence, but and there's no way that the police at the time would have been focusing on a 12-year-old boy. Right?
Oh,
there's
God.
no way.
I mean,
so I can totally get how he would have been missed if there was. This is in, what was it, 1980, before DNA, before CCTV. They would have had very little evidence.
If he was getting away with murders from that young an age, of course it would make him cocky and confident.
The thought that his first murder, I mean, I'm assuming this might have been his first. Who knows if he's done even more, but that his first murder could have been when he was 12 years old.
Oh God, I just want to know the backstory, because you know what? Hearing the whole story of Levi Bellfield, nothing surprises me. And we were talking murder, rape, pedophilia.
I mean, in any case, you can see his career as an asshole started young, very young. And Levi's mum, to this day, maintains that he's innocent.
God.
Sadly, I Googled Hounslow Heath murders and several came up. I'm not saying at all that Levi was responsible for those, because actually other people were convicted. I know people could be wrongly convicted, but they didn't, the dates and so forth. But it made me think, fuck, we need to do an episode just on Hounslow Heath murders. But, and I've made a note to myself never to go to Hounslow Heath ever again for any reason. But I just don't think that I'm ready to do another murder or another case so close to home, because something about walking the same streets as the victims and therefore this dickhead. I just feel like I want to sage the whole of
every one of the areas he operated in. We've either been to, West Drayton, I drive through there twice a day. you know,
Apparently he likes going to the Prince Albert pub near Twickenham Green, where I fucking love going for a Thai because they have an amazing Thai restaurant. I don't think I can go there again.
Yeah. Oh God. No, I know. Not that. But you know what? I still want to know the backstory. I still want to know what turns somebody. Are they born bad? Is it nature or is it nurture? Is it that, you know? Because whenever you hear the backstories of a lot of serial killers, there's often abuse, torture, abuse in their own upbringing.
Something I will say, having researched lots of different cases and so forth, apart from the mum being vile and thinking he's innocent, the fact that in all the documentaries I watched, all the podcasts I listened to, and the book that I read, the fact that they don't touch on it, his family, that much, leads me to think that, I'm not saying it was a healthy upbringing, but that there was no major convictions, for example, or evidence that they could talk about. Maybe they don't know much about his family, you know, maybe they shut down and that was not talked about. Who knows? But I just feel like if we had more information about that, that it would be more out there.
Yeah. God. Do you know what? Honestly, it's because of people like Levi Bellfield that, like, I'm afraid of the world, especially since having kids. I'm afraid of everything for them.
Keep them. Don't let them go anywhere.
I don't. I can't. You know, I'm going to be one of those mothers who just picks them up and drives them fucking everywhere all the time for the rest of their lives.
And I now get why our parents would rather get up in the night and drive to pick us up from faraway places than let us even get a taxi home. Because
oh God, taxis are the worst. God, we could have an episode on the sexual harassment in a fucking taxi alone.
I know, but again, 90s. When we were teenagers, 90s, 2000s, it wasn't Ubers and, you know, Ubers and Bolts where you at least have some kind of idea of who it is and some way of tracing them. And again, you know, there was none of that.
Yeah.
None of that. Like, there were big, you know, big drives to encourage us not to get taxis off the street. Because you remember, leave the pub, you leave the club. And okay, you had the black cabs, which were obviously very expensive, but at closing time, there would be a line of minicab drivers.
Can I just say, black cabs, never had a problem in one.
No, but that's because
and black cab drivers, they got it through the knowledge. They know, at least in London, they know. Are they only in London? I don't know.
No, I think they're in other places, but sadly, they are infinitely more expensive than the cheaper alternatives.
They are.
And in the 90s and 2000s, the alternative was a minicab, and it was quite often you'd leave the club, remember, and it'd be like minicab.
I tell you what, every negative scenario, every fucking scenario involving harassment was in a minicab. Yeah, I mean, oh God, even until recently, even until like 3 years ago. Do you know what I mean? I don't go anywhere anymore, but yeah, I mean, yeah.
So, and you know, not saying that like the Ubers and the Bolts are perfect
without their issues, yeah.
But again, they at least have a registration process where
there's some accountability.
God forbid something happened, they can at least try to trace the vehicle, if not the actual driver. But yeah, there's the case of the guy that was, I think it was Chicago. He was an Uber driver. He was driving around shooting people. He picked up passengers trying to get away from the shooting that he was doing. We should do an episode on this. But yeah, people were trying to get away from this shooter that was active. So they were getting Ubers out, and one of the Uber drivers getting people away from the area was the guy who had been doing the shooting, dropped them off, carried on shooting in somewhere in a different place.
Do you know what, though? What I will say that this whole case did for us was that I never walk alone at night. I mean, I'm rarely out at night because I have kids now, but I never, you know, throughout all my 20s, I think it was a bit like more reckless in teenage years, but throughout my 20s and 30s, I don't walk around at night. And a lot of it is because of that happened close to home, like at a time when
we were of that age.
Yeah, we were in our late teens then, I think. Yeah, so
not blonde. But you know, Levi is not the only sicko in the world. So healthy level of paranoia. Have it. If something doesn't feel right, don't fucking get in the car. You know, call your parents, ask for a lift. You know?
And walk with your keys. Do you know what I always used to do? Walk with your keys.
Windmilling.
Yeah.
We need to put that video.
Yeah. And I'm telling you, whenever I did, even if it was just walking from a building to my car, I walk with my keys poking through my fingers in a fist in case I need to.
What have we learned? These girls in, the 3 cases that he was tried for, and Millie Dowler as well, walking distance from their house.
Mm-hmm.
Meters away from their front door.
Yeah. Oh God. Honestly, it's sickening. It's sad. It's depressing. And you are such a good storyteller, and you really do your research well. But I
wish it was a fictional story.
But I can't say that I can't say I've enjoyed listening to it.
No, I totally get that. But I just wanted, as my first episode, because if you've gathered, we're going to be alternating presenting topics to the other one. As my first one, I wanted to talk about this case. That's one of the main reasons why I got more interested in following these cases, because for us it felt like a matter of life and death to keep on top of what was going on with this case, but even before they found Levi as a suspect. So it was definitely something that drew me in, and I wanted to talk about something that felt very close to home, very personal. Like I said, I'm walking distance to all these places.
Yeah, there's literally reminders everywhere of all these sites. I hope that our listeners enjoyed the story, but I'm sure, it's hard to enjoy it, but found it interesting. And I hope it is a good reminder to people about being safe.
Be paranoid, stay safe.
Yeah. And on a positive note, leave us a review if you enjoyed it.
Yeah, please do. Like I said, we're doing the giveaway, so drop us an email. Details about this on our website. So we're giving a giveaway for people that leave us a review in the first couple of weeks that we, since our launch. You will get a bunch of merch from the Switchblade Sister Social Club, as well as Lunar Planner, as well as some stuff from Rhonda, branded things. Love it. So I don't have a notebook.
Oh, well, you know what? I actually have 6 different designs. I don't actually have the CEO one.
Why did you let me say this like 8 times?
Because I didn't want to interrupt, because then you have to edit it out. I got lots of different notebook designs, and actually pocket mirrors too. So we'll chuck those into the giveaway.
Nice.
But yeah, I'm really gonna have to watch a Disney as a palate cleanser now, just to.
Oh God, I have to walk from my office, which is my converted garage, across the garden in the dark to my house, and even that's gonna freak me out now.
I know. I can imagine it would with me.
Yeah.
But thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you so much. And should we tell them what the next episode is, seeing as we've dropped them all at the same time? Go on. Okay, so next episode is Amy Fisher and Joey Buttafuoco. This one will be a little bit lighter because actually no one dies.
Thank God no one dies, because I don't think my heart can take it.
No, so we'll give you a little bit of a break. And then we'll fuck you up again.
Yeah, it is a story with a somewhat happy ending.
It's a fucking story and a half.
It is a story and a half.
If you think you know it, you don't know.
No. And everyone's alive at the end, so that's a good thing. That's a good thing. And we'll try to inject some of that humor that we promised you.
Yeah, the comedy. We're funny. We're fucking funny, I tell you. All right, well, sorry for traumatizing you. Not sorry for raising your awareness on this case and the kind of fucked up fucktards there are out there, because everyone needs to be aware, because it still goes on. All right, and patriarchy, everyone, and
stick with us for episode 3.
Yeah. So thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Hey there. Thanks for being a loyal listener.
Do you need a new website or want to boost your social media performance? Or do you hate podcast editing? You've tried optimizing your website and social media channels, but you're still not getting the listeners, downloads, and engagement you want?
We, the Safié sisters, love helping people with tasks that they hate. We know a thing or two about podcasts, websites, and social media, and we love working with other podcasters and business owners.
So why not head over to switchbladesisterssocialclub.com and go to our Work With Us section. We believe in collaboration over competition. A rising tide raises all ships.
Bye!